Mad Bear, American Indian Movement by Michael Bastine and Mac Boogaloo. Foreword by Dr. Stanley Krippner. We once thought you came to live with us. You could still have that chance. We're still here. We live on this land. We don't live in your libraries, in the pages of your books. This project is not for digging up our pottery, or for digging up our bones, for that matter. It's not even for digging up data and statistics about us. We have a long, surviving, and sacred tradition and an experimental wisdom that's been passed on for more centuries than you can imagine. This is your chance to benefit from that. All you have to do is be quiet and listen. Quit worrying about proving and believing. Mad Bear, Tuscarora. I had met Mad Bear once, and it was about 1982 when he was traveling with Swami Ramanathan, a spiritual leader from India. I had been lecturing in Scottsdale, Arizona, at an event sponsored by the Association for Research and Enlightenment. This organization is based in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and is devoted to the study of the writings of Edgar Cayce. My friend, Michael Niels, was their driver that day, and he arranged a meeting immediately after my presentation was over. Our meeting was brief but unforgettable. Both Mad Bear and the Swami were extremely charismatic, even though they were relaxed and off-duty. They wanted to learn about Edgar Cayce, and I gave them a crash course, observing that Cayce would self-regulate his consciousness, going into a mode where he could channel information from an unknown source. The case can be made that he inspired America's interest in a variety of topics that were rarely mentioned in the media at that time. Their number included chakras, past lives, mind-body healing, and organic foods. Mad Bear listened attentively to every word, asking perceptive questions from time to time. The three of us had commitments later that day, or we could have spent several hours together. Nonetheless, I am grateful that Michael Niels was able to provide the link for that previous encounter. Interest in American Indians and their culture is on the increase, as demonstrated by numerous books, articles, films, and videos focusing on these topics. However, this book is unique because Mad Bear's apprentice, Michael Bastine, Algonquin, and cultural archivist Mac Boogaloo, Norse pagan, have told this story from a Native American perspective, not a Christian-based Euro-American one, but from the context that made him one of the most prominent American Indian activists and spiritual leaders of the 20th century. In this book, researchers Bastine and Mac Boogaloo describe the Great Law of Peace, the first North American participatory democracy that bound together 6 Indian nations in a confederacy. They also discuss the syncretic longhouse religion, as well as American Indian medicine chakras and meridians. They tell about the dream that originated the ghost dance, the events that led to the invention of wampum, and the fulfillment of the ancient prophecies that foretold the coming of the white buffalo on a farm in Janesville, Wisconsin, near the area where I spent my childhood years. In so doing, this book serves as a prime example of the value of letting Native peoples tell their own story. Mad Bear was given his name by his grandmother. He was hot-tempered even as a baby. Hence, it is ironic that he grew up to become a harbinger of conflict resolution, following the tradition of the Huron prophet, the Gondowida. The Gondowida laid out the groundwork for the Iroquois Confederation that linked nations that previously had engaged in warfare. Mad Bear observed that the Creator loved diversity, and urged ethnic groups to maintain their own traditions while joining in a whirling rainbow that would unite them in a way that maintained their unique hues. However, Mad Bear lived up to his name, and when he became a political activist, expressing righteous anger at the way European colonialism gravely wounded the Indian nations, he rallied against a plethora of broken treaties, the federal construction of artificial tribes that diluted traditional customs, making it easier to rob American Indians of the little land and the few ceremonies they had left. Despite this infuriating legacy, Mad Bear served in the U.S. Navy during World War II. He left the Navy in 1948, but remained on active duty with the Merchant Marines until 1977. They provided him with a steady source of income for his participation in their winter tour of duty. After Mad Bear left the service in 1948, he applied for a construction loan, a GI Bill, only to be turned down, presumably because of his ethnicity. It was this rejection that propped him into political rights activism. In the mid to late 50s, Mad Bear's twin sisters were murdered. This tragedy reinforced Mad Bear's resolve. His study of U.S. history provided evidence on an ongoing pattern of oppression, such as the 1978 Second Trail of Tears, when his people, the Tuscarora, were promised a bountiful location in Kansas. Many left the New York area, and a great number of these presumptive settlers died en route. The few that survived the long winter trail, to their shock and dismay, discovered a wasteland at their end of their sojourn. The only promise kept by the government was a collection of colorful blankets, but according to Mad Bear's account, they had been purposely infected with smallpox that killed virtually all of the survivors of the ordeal. Bastine and Mac Boogaloo cite scholarship supporting many of Mad Bear's histories and cosmologies, including James Spottiswoode, Dr. Aleskev Dmitriev, Paul Otto Hess, Nikola Korev, Nima Akarni Hamed, Jaroslav Trnka, Vine Deloria Jr., and James R. Flynn. But they also describe the diverse roles played by Mad Bear's contemporaries, such as Chief Diskahe, Chief Clinton Richards, Chief Alfred Gang, Chief Elton Green, Chief Corbett Sundown, and Chief Marcus Peters. These leaders did not speak in a single voice, and there are evocative descriptions of the conflicts between opposing factions. Some wanted to assimilate into Euro-American culture, while others wanted to retain their traditions that they had fought hard to maintain. Indeed, the word chief is a European construct that did not exist before they invaded North America. Reputed to have a photographic memory, Mad Bear could cite facts and figures from the microcosm, human activity on Earth, and the macrocosm, the Earth's place in the cosmos. Mad Bear did not think that the past could be recreated, but proposed that humans could use the knowledge of the past to understand the present and to guide future activities. His rationale, common to American Indians in general, is that time is circular, not linear, a complex hoop instead of a simple arrow. This worldview is also shared by Mesoamerican and South American Indians, as Mad Bear discovered during several gatherings he attended that bridged Mesoamerican tribes with their North American counterparts. Some of these gatherings were facilitated by our mutual friend Michael Niels, who is featured in the book The Voice of Rolling Thunder. This book was written by Sidian Morningstar and me. Sidian is the grandson of Rolling Thunder, another American Indian activist and medicine man. The authors, Bastine and Mac Boogaloo, detail Mad Bear's leadership and or participation in such events as the North American Indian Unity Conventions in the late 60s, various fissions, teaching colleges, and unity caravans. Mad Bear's previous direct action activism was the precursor to the 1968 founding of the American Indian Movement. The 1969 to 1971 occupation of the Alcatraz Island, the 1972 takeover of the Bureau of Indian Affairs offices, the 1973 Wounded Knee Intervention, and the Longest Walk in 1978. Mad Bear helped stop congressional legislation that would have closed Indian reservations, forcing their occupants to fit into the mainstream. In this role as a pan-Indian activist, Mad Bear was guided by the non-violence stance taken by Gandhi, who he admired, and Martin Luther King, who he met. Mad Bear interacted with the Dalai Lama and the Sufi ritualist Pir Vilat Khan, as well as a range of show business celebrities, ranging from Jane Fonda and Johnny Cash to the Grateful Dead rock band. After 3 decades of strenuous political activism, Mad Bear shifted from political leadership to primarily spiritual leadership in his spiritual activism, as well as consorting with such well-known medicine men such as Semu Huate, Leonard Crow Dog, and Rolling Thunder. However, Mad Bear had been prepared for this career by his grandmother, the same one who gave him his name. She had been a master herbalist and shared much of her knowledge with her grandson. All of his life, he viewed medicine as a life force, and this worldview permeated his treatment. Another concept was that of male ailments and female ailments, which in turn were best remediated by male medicines and female medicines. These divisions crossed gender lines and resembled the Chinese medical designations of yin and yang, food and treatments. He would often toss tobacco leaves into water, observe the pattern, and would talk to them before beginning to work with a patient. When he asked how much of his success was due to the placebo effect, he offered the figure of 90%. Rolling Thunder told me much the same thing, noting that people generally heal themselves once the medicine man, or medicine woman, puts them in touch with their own inner healer. The placebo effect was often potentiated by colorful rituals, social support, and dramatic masks. Mad Bear was a long-time member of the False Face Society and had 2 masks that he had felt to be especially potent. In fact, I found many similarities between Mad Bear's medical practice and that of both Rolling Thunder, with whom I had considerable contact, Semu Huate, with whom I had some contact, and Leonard Crow Dog, with whom I had very little contact. All 4 had mastered a variety of traditional Indian healing systems. All 4 refused to treat people who offered them high fees. All 4 used intuition and clairvoyance in arriving at a diagnosis. In fact, clairvoyance, lucid dreaming, telepathy, and remote viewing were skills to be used for positive purposes, not abilities to be demonstrated for gain, fame, or profit. Mad Bear once remarked that if people wanted to see such a demonstration, they should go to a circus sideshow. All 4 believe that what Euro-Americans call magic is what American Indians call working with natural laws. Mad Bear became well known for manifesting unusual abilities such as predictions, apparently foreseeing, or possibly initiating the 1971 New York City blackout. From a Euro-American point of view, these abilities are considered paranormal, metaphysical, or anomalous. But from an Indian perspective, they are one of the varied ways of knowing that were generated by the Creator, a manifestation of the long body that does not stop where a person's skin stops, but continues into time and space, enveloping family, clan, community, and even the cosmos. Sometimes Mad Bear and Rolling Thunder's skills complemented each other, as when a needy person called upon Rolling Thunder to contact Mad Bear, Rolling Thunder made an at-distance request, and 3 hours later, Mad Bear, from the opposite side of the coastline, magically appeared at his door. On another occasion, also related in this book, Mad Bear requested a phone number from his local telephone company, and readers will have to read that complicated account within the pages to get the details. Mad Bear was more of a consolator than was Rolling Thunder, but both of them had a ribald sense of humor and knew how to use their temper for constructive purposes. Madbear took these interactions into account when he worked with patients. He would talk with medicinal plants to determine the time in their development when they were at their maximal potencies, the day of the month when they could be most useful, and even the time of day when they needed to be put to use. Madbear at times had nasty encounters with malevolent sorcerers and evil witches, as opposed to the helpful sorcerers and witches that could inflict distress onto their victims. He worked his medicine to negate their bad medicine. Madbear was also known to evoke rain and predict earthquakes. In one case, informing his travel companion that he had to get out of town in order to evade an earthquake, which did indeed hit Southern California. In 1983, Madbear phoned Rolling Thunder asking him to find his medicine pouch, which he had misplaced. Rolling Thunder replied that it was nowhere to be found. In reality, Rolling Thunder had quickly identified its whereabouts, but did not want Madbear to keep doctoring. After Madbear passed in 1985, his house was ransacked. Everything of value was taken. Luckily, a friend later found his medicine pouch in the garage, undisturbed. Since that time, Madbear had been reported to have appeared in people's dreams, a phenomenon I call visitation dreams. As always, he urges replacing the axis of evil with an axis of love, purity, and unity. As reported in this book, Madbear believed, we are all plugged into the whole works. This marvelous book will keep that sentiment alive. We must gather our nations together is also a plea for intertribal unity and a call for all its readers to find and follow the red road of spiritual activism. Dr. Stanley Krippner, 2016.